good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on when you are and where you are joining from. It's 7 p.m. in Kraków, it's 1 p.m. in New York. And in New York with us, there's this great photographer, Chuck Fishman, who is our honorary guest today, who will be speaking about his work in Poland. His work in Poland that spans over 45 years now, it's exactly 45 years. And it's like a reference set of images when you are discussing the Jewish life under the communism and the Jewish life after 1989 in the democratic Poland. Before I will ask Chuck some questions, before I will show some of his photographs, before we will start this discussion, I just have some small announcement to make, of course, and we'll share a screen for a short while. Today's meeting is a part of a larger program. This program will consist of several online Zoom meetings with photographers, artists, scholars about Jewish history and Jewish presence in Poland. We start with Chuck Fishman because he's really important in the context of the projects we are doing. The main component of this program, which, as you can see, is a public project financed by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, is a mobile application which we are hoping to launch tomorrow. This mobile application will be dedicated to photographs which have something to do with the Jewish past, Jewish presence, Jewish history, Jewish heritage in Poland. You can see some names of the photographers that we will be presenting via the application, and the idea is really simple. Every 2 days or every 3 days, twice a week, 3 times a week, we will be publishing one single photograph with a caption, with a text, which will contextualize the photograph, which will explain the historical, artistic, social background. So really what we hope to do is to occupy you for 2 or 3 minutes every few days, and with time build a database of images and of texts which will be allowing you to learn something about Jewish Poland. So Chuck Fishman. Some of our viewers probably know you, but many don't. So let's start from the very beginning. I know Chuck from 2014, I guess. 13. Okay, even better. It's even better. I had a privilege to work with Chuck to create an exhibition which was shown first in Warsaw in 2018, because the exhibition was being prepared by the Galicia Jewish Museum and Jewish Historical Institute in Warsaw. I was co-curating the exhibition with wonderful Teresa Śmiechowska. I'm not sure if she joined or not, but she knew about the meeting, so maybe she's there. We showed the exhibition in Warsaw, then we showed the exhibition in Kraków, and last year it was traveling in United States. And now it's on lockdown like everything else. Museums that are not working on regular basis, galleries are not working on regular basis. There is another scheduled showing in Płock later this year, but I'm sure that as soon as this crazy pandemic that took over the world will be gone, we will be showing this exhibition in many other places. This exhibition shows a selection of vast work of Chuck Fishman that started in 1975. In 1975, this guy from New York, 20 years 21 years old, a student of photography, came to communist Poland. And not only that, he came to communist Poland and he was photographing Jews. What made you to do it, Chuck? Why did you came to Poland in the first place? Being 21, having so many destinations which seemed probably better than Poland.
Well, first I was a student. I was a college student, and I was doing a senior thesis, and I selected as my senior thesis in photography. I narrowed it down to a couple of different things, and then it became going to Poland from where I was in school, which was in Southern Illinois. And I went with a writer, and we went to do a speculative work on what we could find of what was considered the end of Jewish life and culture in Poland. Poland was is the cradle of so many aspects of Jewish culture, and it was deemed all over the world that it was in its very last possible true generation. I had no thoughts of going back after 75. It was just, that's where we went. We didn't stay together all the time. We split up, we compared notes, we did sometimes we went together. And it did become my senior thesis. It became my first professional photography portfolio, and it did become a book, which is what we were trying to accomplish to begin with. Published 2 years later.
Mm-hmm. Maybe I will show the
book.
Maybe I will show the book.
I can show the book. I can show the book.
You can show the book. Yeah, show the book.
Here's the book.
Oh. Here it is.
There you go.
Yeah. So the book was published in 1977.
Correct.
The book was called Polish Jews, the Last Chapter.
No, the final chapter.
Final chapter, sorry, the final chapter. See, sounds even worse. It's the final chapter. This is it. The book came out 2 years after your trip to Poland.
Right.
And the book contained a number of photographs. Let me just jump here.
Okay.
And show some of them. Sorry, it's a technical thing. So it's 1975. Chuck is coming to Poland. He's photographing Polish Jews. This is just a introduction. Polish Jews, final chapter. There are portraits of Polish Jews. There are pictures of people, Polish Jews, being Polish Jews. And there, just for reference, is quite a lot of photographs of Jewish heritage, Jewish built heritage, synagogues, cemeteries, communal buildings, which you photographed traveling Poland. At the same time, pretty much at the same time, you were the first one, actually. Number of books came out which had the similar titles. The Last Jews of Radowce by amazing book by Lawrence Salzman. The Remnants by The Last Jews of Poland by Tomasz Tomaszewski, one of the greatest photographer, one of the greatest Polish photographer. The Last Jews of Eastern Europe. I would probably find some more books like that. It seemed like this is it, like that this is the end. Like general feeling was that Jewish community is to cease to exist in Eastern Europe. Photographing Polish Jews, doing this work, did you have the same feeling?
Of course, absolutely. Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay, yeah. The people themselves were expressing that. the Jews themselves were expressing that this is it. It's after us, turn off the lights, because it's over. I went back, I was back in 3 years later, 3.5 years later in December of 1978 as a working professional photographer. Never thinking I really would be going back 3.5 years earlier, but as a working professional, I went to photograph the country that the brand new Pope, John Paul II, had been nominated from, this communist country. And so as a working professional with an agency, a photo agency behind me, I went to photograph the country of where this newfound Pope came from, to the people in the West, because this was under communism. This was behind the Iron Curtain. This is still, a place where Westerners, where a lot of us, came from, knew very little about. So, I registered with the official Interpress agency, but on my own, I sought out the Jewish communities and had little pictures with me. I made little prints, and whenever I went back and forth, actually over the next several years, and again, never really knowing when I was going back, but every time I did go back, I made little 5x7 prints, and when I saw people that I recognized, I gave them to them.
Icebreaker
And a give, and they allowed, it's a give and take. It's a give and take.
These were the later trips. How did you get to the Jewish community during your first stay in Poland? 1975.
The very first time in 75, first of all, we both came in together, the writer and myself, through East Germany. And because we were coming in from Western Poland, our first real city was Wrocław, or Breslau, also known as Breslau, before many, many, many years ago. We had with us a couple of small reference books. We knew that in Wrocław, which was a big Jewish community, there was the White Stork Synagogue. We had to find that, we had to locate it somehow, which was a whole mix and match. A lot of it was really stumbling over our feet. A lot of it was stumbling and finding things like a puzzle, or asking people questions, and you had to ask the older people questions, because it was only the older people who would have known anything. And we learned, memorized a few phrases in Polish, like in Polish, where is the Jewish synagogue, or where is the Jewish cemetery? And almost all the time the answer was nie ma, which in communist Poland you learned was the catch-all word of everything, which means there isn't any. But if you ask 25 people, 24 of them will say nie ma, but if you keep asking one more time, the 25th person might just look at you and say, come this way, and point you in a certain way, or through, or make it go that way, and you go around a fence, and there might be a hole in a fence or a wall which you climb over, and then you're in a cemetery, and with headstone, with Jewish headstone, it's like, whoa. In various states of disrepair, or a monument of some kind, or a once synagogue. In larger communities like Warsaw and Krakow, there was someplace, there was the kosher kitchens where we had addresses where we could find and meet people. So it varied, but a lot of times it was just stumbling. With a forward direction, stumbling, but never, ever, ever stopping. And then when I was shooting, I didn't know if I'd get my film out. This is communist Poland. And, we separated. I took a night train out of Katowice. an overnight train to Katowice and had to, you know, go through, at the time, Czechoslovakia. So there were several different, to get into Austria, to get to Vienna. And I had my film basically buried at the bottom of my shoulder bag under a couple of layers of things, my film and my journal, and my 2 cameras and other things. I had no idea if I'd be able to get anything out. You know, the dogs on the train, the German shepherds and the police and the passports and everything. And I was there with a backpack and a shoulder bag. I was a student. I was a student, that's it. I'm just a student on seeing the world. And I got my film out. And I got to Vienna and I mailed it home to my parents. Because I stayed in Europe. I stayed a couple more weeks to decompress, really, and to vacate. Because I was under a lot of stress for those 6.5 weeks when I was in Poland. Sometimes there's a lot of stress. I got back to the States, got back to my parents' house, my parents' place, took the film, went back to school and processed the film, made my contact sheets, started making prints, started making portfolio, and it went on from there. And 6 months later, I took that portfolio to New York, where I then met people in the photography industry of where I wanted to meet and go to. And that's also when I first met people like Roman Wisniak, Lucien Dobrzycki, who was still in the process, along with Barbara Kirschenblatt-Gimblet, of making the book Image Before My Eyes, which is about Jewish life in photographic history of Jewish life in Poland from 1864 to 1939. Dr. Dobrzycki, he said he was thinking about using some of my pictures in his book, but he said, no, we want to keep it to pre-Holocaust.
Chuck, let us look at some of this 1975 photographs, maybe. Maybe you can say something about them.
Sure.
I will just mention what is on them, and then you can say something more if you feel like this is
sure.
This is the way to go. This is a photograph that was on the cover of the book.
Correct.
And when this meeting today was advertised on Facebook, when we had the Facebook announcement of this event, someone said in the comments that I like this, I love these photographs because this is it. This tells all the story. And it seemed like that. It's almost like this caretaker of the Jewish cemetery in Łódź is about to, you know, collapse and disappear between these tilled headstones. Let me show another one. This is 1975. This is Kraków. This is a Holocaust Auschwitz survivor showing his tattooed number. And when I look at your photographs from 1975. Actually, in 1975, everyone that was photographed was a survivor of this or other sort.
Yeah.
This was community of survivors. At least this is what appears in the book. This is Kraków. This is probably in front of the Rema Synagogue.
That's in the remote courtyard. Yes, just before Friday night services, where the men, you know, would congregate and see each other before going in for services. Friday night.
Just out of curiosity, he presented the tattoo himself, or it was something that you asked him to do?
Oh, I probably asked him. I don't really remember, but
he wasn't hesitant or something like that. It was like
no, not whatsoever. I don't and didn't. Try and force or you know, cajole anyone into doing something unless they really wanted to do it.
These are chess players in Łódź.
Chess players at the Jewish club, the no longer existing Jewish club in Łódź, with the classic mural in the background, which is now lost to history. But you know, I was there, and they just allowed me to photograph.
This is probably Lublin, or
Lublin. That's the shamus or the sexton of the Lublin Beit Midrash, the only prayer room left in Lublin, which was a major Jewish city. He was living alone. His wife and daughters had moved to Israel post 1968 after the last purge, the last anti-Semitic purge by the government. And but he had a bad heart, and he had a small pension, and he lived in this tiny room right next to it, right next to that Beit Midrash, and he stayed to take care of it.
And this is Przemyśl. The next one is Przemyśl.
Correct. And that we found that man because we found the synagogue there, which was then a huge library, is a huge synagogue. And we asked the librarian, who could tell us in various kind of languages, stories, and we asked, and again, asking is a euphemism. We indicated like, how else can we find people? And anyway, she gave us this man's name and address. He lived a couple blocks away. We went to the address, knocked on the door. This little old man opened up, and we started, and he saw these two young men from the West, and he was like, you know, his room was tiny, really tiny, big enough for his bed, and a tiny little kitchen. And we spoke a little bit of Yiddish and a little bit of Hebrew, a little bit of Polish, and he was beyond happy. He had visitors, and at some point he started to sing. He was sitting on his bed and he started to sing, you know, these songs, these Yiddish songs, and one of them was "Who Will Say Kaddish for Me," which while you know he was singing this, and it was moments like this. It's like, you know, sometimes looking through my lenses, like, is this really happening? This is like incredible stuff. And the bottom line is, I sure hope I don't screw this up, you know, because
well, you didn't. You didn't. These are two photographs which are juxtaposed here. They are also from the 1975. There's much more of them, but we don't have time to show everything. And at the end, I will give you the reference where to look for them. But looking at your photographs from 1975, it really looks like this is the final chapter. We mostly have survivors, mostly have old men.
Yes.
In the synagogue, in the Beit Midrash, in the private apartment. And I think that these two images show that in a very, very good way. On the left, we have a woman who is knitting, sitting just outside of the Majdanek concentration, on the Majdanek camp. Right. On the right, we have a man in Warsaw. I think this is the funeral chapel, and he's saying Kaddish for a recently deceased member of the Jewish community. So we not only have,
he was Pincus, caretaker of the Jewish cemetery, Warsaw Jewish Cemetery.
So
yes.
we not only have the collapsing, declining Jewish community, less and less Jews and older Jews in Poland, but also the image of on the left, it somehow suggests the loss of memory within the general Polish public at that time, the loss of memory or loss of sensitivity, or getting used to this stuff, which when we think about it, it's impossible. It's something that you cannot get over, or it's really difficult to get over it. And we will get to that. So this was 1975. But there was also 1978, 1979, as you said, 1980, 1983, 4 more visits to Poland. This time as a professional photographer, photographing for largest magazines probably, or publishing later the photographs in the largest magazines. I will at the end give the link to the Chuck Fishman's website, and you can see his photographs of Lech Wałęsa, of John Paul II, of Solidarity Movement, or of street scenes from Kraków and Warsaw. This was being done for money. Jews were being done as your own personal sort of project.
Well, when you say for money, as a freelance photographer, most work was done on speculation. You know, and you just as at the time a freelance magazine photojournalist / photographer, you just went and worked. and not concerned about trying to make money out of it, because oftentimes you didn't. You know, sometimes money came back later, sometimes you know, enough to cover expenses, sometimes not, sometimes you made some. But it wasn't something, but yes, it was done for an audience. That other work, whereas the Polish Jews, when I came back in 78 and 79, I decided this work I won't publish anymore. You know, I did the book and that was that, but then I started to see younger people, people I met in Yiddish theater in Warsaw who were my age or younger, and we became friends, and some children I photographed at a Seder in 79, and it's like, where'd these people come from? And I made a very conscious decision to, you know, anytime I was in Poland, I'm not publishing this picture. This is for history. This is for posterity. This is personal. This is a personal project. And maybe in several decades, you know, they'll come out. And they weren't seen. Those pictures were not seen until about 8 years ago.
Yeah.
I kept them archived.
This was one of the most important archive of Polish Jewish life, but it was private archive and it was on your shelf. When I look at the photographs from 1978, 1979, 80, 83, I have a feeling that these photographs are a bit different than what you did in 1975. In 1975, I mostly see Jews. In the later years, I see the community. The community is there, something which was missing, which I was missing. And this is understandable. Probably it was easier the second time, the third time, the fourth time, and maybe this is actually a question. Maybe there was more trust toward you from the community. How do you see that?
Well, people knew me more. They knew me because they had seen me in different years. So it wasn't as if I was a threat.
So it's
and
like,
also I was a kid. I was young. I was this nice Jewish boy from America. You know,
this guy again, yeah. It was like
yeah,
that.
and I gave them pictures of themselves, so they remembered. You know, they knew me, they remembered me, and they knew I wasn't a threat of any kind, and they were happy to have me. You know, by and large, they were happy to have me.
Again, can we see some photographs? I guess, yeah, we can see some photographs.
Go ahead, all yours, Tomasz. Okay, these are both in Warsaw. The one on the left is the Beit Midrash, or the prayer room associated or affiliated with the Nozick Synagogue, where there was a little set of buildings that had the synagogue, which was kept closed because it was way too big, and way too big to use for Saturday Shabbat services or Shabbos services. This is Orthodox services. And I've been asked, like, how could you possibly photograph on Shabbat? And the answer is simple. Sometimes it wasn't very easy. And sometimes I was yelled at by someone who might not have known me. You know, and then I would look at someone who did know me while I was being yelled at, and they would basically yell at the person yelling, basically, in essence, in combination of Yiddish, Polish, whatever, saying, basically, leave him alone. Leave him alone. He's a nice boy. Leave him alone. You know, like, what, we're finished. There's nothing anyway. We're done here. Leave him alone. And sometimes I was, you know, I was very more open to photograph like the one on the left. But also a very quick story. Sometimes, like on a cold winter's day, you know, let's say in January '79, I'm not someone who goes to Sabbath services. I'm not a religious person. You know, for me to wake up in a bed like in like northern Warsaw in an apartment, and to actually get up early in the morning and get dressed and take a tram, go into the snow and take a tram and walk and everything. Sometimes I had to guilt myself into saying, come on, if you don't do it, no one's doing it. You know, get up, you'll get up. And sometimes I remember literally dragging myself out of bed, just out of guilt. The one on the right is the Jewish community waiting, April 1979, about to go upstairs in the kosher kitchen for Passover Seder.
And there are smiles.
They were smiles. Yeah, people knew me. They knew me, and I was photographing, and they were about to have Seder, you know. So things were cool. That was one of the Seder nights.
This is Pesach. This is interesting photograph.
Okay, now we're in Krakow. This is in the basement of the Gmina building, where the official Jewish community had its headquarters and kosher kitchen. And once a week, I discovered that there was this selling of sorts of what was considered kosher meat or kosher enough meat, and tickets. I don't know how people received tickets, because you couldn't pay with money. You paid with tickets, and people came. And this I was told by people who lived during those times. This is the face of communism. This is how we lived. This was how we felt, and the shochet, or the butcher, there were two of them there, you know, and this one in various languages explained to me the meat, it's kosher, it's as kosher as we can get it here in Poland.
Kosherish.
It's kosherish, yeah.
Yeah, this is, that were the times basically. And you know, no one had meat at that time. Hardly anyone could get a meat on regular basis. I mean, this was the communist Poland. This is Kraków, Rama Synagogue.
Right.
This is Warsaw Kosher Kitchen.
Correct.
This actually is Róża Bauminger, who is a writer, who was a writer.
Yes. She was a librarian. At the time, I didn't know that, but she was a writer. She wrote a book.
She was in the Skarżysko-Kamienna camp, and in her book, she's basically recollecting her being in a camp.
Do you know the name of the book?
It's.
I have it somewhere.
Yeah.
I have it somewhere.
Polish title. So.
Yeah.
This is one of my favorites. To be honest.
This is Warsaw, the Beit Midrash on a Shabbat morning. He was very, very poor. He was a very poor man, and he didn't want to sit with the other men. He was very impoverished, and he sat alone.
And this is Kraków.
Kraków, both Remu. The Remu on the left. These are guys coming in for the start of Friday night services. They were in the courtyard. That one on the left was in 1983. That was one of the last pictures I made in the 80s. And the one on the right, it was Friday night, calling people to get enough men for Minyan.
Yes. And then we have this. This is new. This is something which didn't appear before in the 1975 book. We have children. This is actually Hebrew classes. Yeah.
This is one of the first things I saw when I came back in December '78 that just blew me away. Here's a young kids and a young adult learning Hebrew in a room next to the kosher kitchen on Friday with the Nojic Synagogue in the back through the windows, and then I saw some of these kids again a few months later at the Seder. And it was like when I was led into this door, this room, and there's a Seder a few months later with two of the boys, and Moshe Shapiro on the left, who was integral in keeping the community alive.
There are also kids in the kosher canteen, basically.
Kosher kitchen, yeah, kosher kitchen. I don't know the relationship between the woman and the child. I did not get a name. I know nothing about it. I have no idea anything about that child. It would be cool if I did, but I don't. And
basically, we used this next photograph we used for the poster for the exhibition.
Yes.
We actually had a number of posters with different images. This was one of them, and this pretty much shows the direct transfer of knowledge and tradition to the new generations. And I think that this is what really made it possible for you to come back 30 years later. In my presentation, next slide is at 3 dots, basically. And each dot represents 1 decade.
Okay.
For 30 years, you didn't come back to Poland. In the introduction to the catalog of the exhibition, that we did for your exhibition, I said something like, upon leaving Poland in 1983, Fishman couldn't imagine the photographs he would take decades on in the democratic Poland. I wonder, maybe I was over dramatic.
No, no. I was completely freaked out when I first went back in 2013. I was astonished. It was just for me, it was mind-boggling. And I'd heard about it
in a good way, in a very good way. First of all, just stepping off the airplane in Warsaw at Chopin Airport in 2013 and walking into this international modern airport. You know, when I left Poland in 1983, I left out of a little military airport with, you know, guards with military checking everything, and came back into the 21st century. And where I started, you know, I saw ATMs and everything was a Western capital city, you know, Warsaw, and then went straight to the sukkah, one of the sukkahs, the Nojic Synagogue sukkah, where I saw Jews, and kids, and then attended different synagogues in Warsaw, brand new synagogues. What made you to come back in 2013?
It was time. It was time. I saw, well, my friend Ruth Ellen Gruber, the writer, journalist, author, had made a presentation in New York about a year or so earlier, which my wife and I attended, and she was talking about life in Poland. She had worked in Poland and lived there for a while. And one of the pictures she showed was in some restaurant, and the wait staff of the waiter was dressed as a chassid. Hat, payas, all phony, but it was a kitsch Jewish restaurant. And I looked at that picture and I said to myself, holy, I don't know what's going on in Poland. But maybe now I should take out my old work. Maybe now, because, you know, maybe now, and put it in a relation that maybe I should go back and maybe put them together and see really what's going on for myself. Because I said, maybe there are Jews in Poland, maybe there aren't, maybe it's a nice story, maybe, you know, that's a fantasy story. I said, but as far as I'm concerned, that's something. Seeing that picture of Ruth's, I said, that's something. And now it's okay. And anyone who I'd photographed decades earlier, they're grown. They're finished. They're either grown, they're assimilated. It's no longer communism, and maybe they no longer even live there. And the survivors I'd photographed are primarily all dead anyway. It wouldn't make any difference. So maybe now I should take out my older work, see if there's any people want to even see it. But now it's time to go back. And 30 years is a nice, what's the right word? Linchpin, you know. So, okay, so these are both 2013. This is JCC Krakow, which is now 10 years old, a beacon of light of Jewish life, renewal, re-identification, everything in Krakow. The picture on the right is the very first time that Rabbi Avi Bomel, who's the man on the extreme right, first time he was teaching Sunday school when he first got there. Israeli-American rabbi, or American-Israeli rabbi, and introducing Torah to kids who are considered fourth generation. There's 2G, 3G, 4G, and most of us listening to this probably know what that's all about.
In terms of the Jewish history in Poland and your photographs from the 1970s and 80s, the photo on the left is quite something that you can expect. The photo on the right, it might have happened before. What about this one?
Yoga, JCC Krakow. I knew
this is new.
This was new. This was 2013. I knew before going back to Poland in 2013, I knew of the JCC. I was introduced to various people online and via Facebook. And I read about the JCC, and I knew they had programs. I knew that yoga was one of them, and I do yoga on a very regular basis, and I knew there was no way I was not going to be photographing a yoga class in 2013 Poland at a JCC no less. So I was in one yoga session, and I made lots of pictures, but I chose this particular one. As a lighthearted look at really what's going on, some of what's going on there now. Life is going on there. This is a bris, a circumcision, Brit Milah, took place a few years ago in the Isaac Synagogue in Krakow. The Isaac is hundreds of years old, but this is a bris. 2013 JCC Student Club took place in an apartment of one of the people there. This was in the kitchen. Young people who discovered their Jewish identity. Some very recently. The guy in the middle at the time was 22 years old. 4 years earlier, he on his 18th birthday, his mother gave him a little box and told him simply, "This is from my mother, your grandmother, who's no longer alive. She made me promise not to open it, but to give it to you on your 18th birthday." So he took the box. He asked what's in it. She said she didn't know. He opened it up. There's a Jewish star on a gold chain, and with his name written on the back, says, "With love from Grandma and Grandpa." And he had no idea what this was all about. Neither did his mother. Both of his grandparents were Jewish, halachically, if those who know what that's all about. Halachically, his mother, who was raised as a Polish Catholic, and Damien, who was raised as a Polish Catholic, they were both 100% Jewish and would have been accepted in the state of Israel immediately, whereas many people cannot be. And he chose to discover what it meant. And there was a JCC in Krakow at the time where people could go and learn something, and many thought that they were alone, that this was unique to them, and they met other people, young people and not so young people, who discovered the exact same thing. Sometimes just like days before, sometimes years before. But they were now free and open and available to discover it.
And this is something that I have some more photographs to illustrate that, because this is one of these aspects of your 2010s photographs that is completely new when you compare them with the earlier work. And also, because of the crash of my mic, I forgot to mention one important thing. I'm not sure if you did that when I was trying to rescue this evening, in Poland evening. The idea when you came to Poland in 2013 was to use the same sort of photographic setup, being analog camera and exposing black and white film.
Yes, yes, I felt that was important on several different levels, both as I didn't want. This was a continuum. This was not like two separate projects. This was the same project. One started in the 70s and is just being continued. And to use a different type of medium, a digital medium, would have broken that. Also, to photograph using film is a different, mentally psychologically is a different way of photographing than with digital. You have to know it. You have to pick and choose what you're going to do. It's a different way of working, and I wanted to keep that way of working the same. And the medium afterwards, which, as far as I'm concerned, silver gelatin photographic prints, for me the best way to present finished work. And I wanted to continue that and have everything as silver gelatin prints going forward. And it was, again, for people to look, I wanted people to look at the images, to look at the photographs and say, well, they look similar, but wait a minute, this kid, there's a kid here and he has like a Nike, logo on a hat. They didn't have Nike in 1970s. So it's like, no, but it's the same medium you're looking at. So you have to look at the images, you have to look at the pictures to really, see what's going on. but still within the same, let's say, ocean, so to speak. This is the Chief Rabbi of Poland, Michael Szudrich, doing what he always does 6 days a week, so 24/6, which is working. He's an instrumental force in the continuation or the re-rise of Jewish life in Poland. He's always working and just fantastic.
This photograph shows Rabbi in the middle of nowhere, going from one Jewish thing to another Jewish thing,
yes.
Doing Jewish thing on his phone and trying to squeeze a lunch in between.
A kosher lunch, no less.
Kosher lunch, yeah.
Yes.
Which I think is not bad, if you will consider 1970, 1980 photographs. These are children from the Etz Chaim congregation,
yes.
Which is another very powerful photograph, because they seem like being genuinely interested in what is in front of them. There is again Chief Rabbi and Havdalah, I think, and
yes, in the sukkah, in the Nozik Synagogue
yeah,
sukkah.
The
Yes.
branches, yeah, and so on. And this is what you mentioned before. There is more and more discovering or rediscovering or on deciding, embracing the Jewish past, on Jewish heritage in Poland. And yes. You take quite a lot of photographs during these trips lately, showing that one you already commented before. These are three more. If you can just briefly say something about them.
Okay. First of all, this is all the same congregation, Beit Warszawa in Warsaw. All of these people shown are very recently completed conversion to Judaism, so they're now called Jews by choice. They passed their studies. They had exams with a Beit Din, with a rabbinic council by 3 rabbis who came in to Poland from other countries. They had all bathed in a mikvah. The photograph on the upper right is a man who had just come up from the mikvah and being congratulated by his friend. And the two pictures on the left and the lower right is the first Friday night service where these new Jews by choice are taking part, and they're being blessed on the lower right by the rabbi at the time of Beit Warszawa. And these the people. Some people are going through conversions. Some people, feel that there's no reason for them to go through conversion. They know they're Jewish, and that's all there is to it. Whether they're considered halachically or not, they don't care. So it's a mixed bag. It's a mixed bag, but there is certainly more and more people discovering and that they have Jewish roots. They do, and whether they choose to take themselves up on it and learn about it or not is strictly up to them.
This is one of the few photographs that you just sent me a couple of days ago, which
Yes.
were never published before.
No.
So this is a treat. This is a treat. These are photographs from your last visit. I will show like maybe 5 of them.
Okay.
But this set is 3 of them, because this is another thing which I found out that you recently photographed a lot, and basically this is about commemoration. We can discuss the revival. We can and we will in a second again. But still, this is where the Holocaust happened. This is where the bad happened to the Jewish people of Poland. So this is Jedwabne. This is Szczuczyn, if I'm correct. I think so.
Yep.
And this is Okopowa Cemetery, Jewish cemetery, with the Polish president kneeling. How do you find this yourself during these events?
Well, first, the one on the left, Jedwabne, many people will have no idea what Yevamna is. Yevamna simply is a town, small town in Poland, where in the early 1940s, it was 41, I believe,
Yes.
Jews were herded into a barn. Those blocks of stone are the perimeter of what was the barn. They were herded into the barn and burned alive. And they were done, it was done by neighbors. And there's a book written by Jan Gross called Neighbors in the early 2000s, which is highly controversial, set many people in Poland up in arms, because it was not done, the murders were not done by Germans. They were done by anti-Semites, and they were neighbors, literally neighbors. This was last year in 2019 on an anniversary of the Jedwabne barn murders. That same day, there were several people went to other places of pogrom, of murder, within a small area of the countryside in northern Poland. The upper right-hand picture is they had just done an official commemoration, and now people who there are walking past to go deeper, farther into what was once a forest area, where a local man had built his own memorial very recently of matzevot, of broken tombstones, and made a beautiful little memorial. My local man, not Jewish, because there are no Jews there in these places, but as a commemoration. The lower right-hand picture, this is the very first time it's being shown anywhere. That is the past and present president of Poland, Duda. Here he is. This was from 2018. This is the day that there were commemorations for the 75th anniversary of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. Here he is in the Warsaw Jewish Cemetery. You have your press on the left, because of course it is a photo op. You have the Secret Service all around. You have military, and he's paying his respects, putting flowers down on a hero from the Ghetto Uprising. There is a contingent of the Jewish community, which is out of the frame on the right side. And after this, in different groups, was the official commemoration, 75th anniversary commemoration at the Ghetto Heroes Monument, which is where now on that plaza, which is where the Polin Museum is, which is the history of Polish Jews. And when I'd photographed that ceremony, as well as a ceremony in 1979, when the plaza was empty, and now the plaza has. I
will show this photographs in a second.
Okay.
One more photograph from the last few years. This is the Festival of Jewish Culture in Kraków. This is the final night, the final concert of the festival, and somehow in connection with the photographs from the commemorations that were just shown before, I think this is the same process, the process of non-Jewish Poles getting involved in the Jewish history and Jewish culture and being interested in Jewish history and Jewish culture. Of course, this is much more complicated than that, but probably you were witnessing this interest from non-Jews.
Absolutely.
Non-Jewish Poles in all things Jewish. this is one of the avenues of the so-called revival of Jewish life in Poland. First, we have Jewish communities, growing Jewish communities. Second, we have those non-Poles as here. This is just one photo to basically show that, but there's more photographs like that. We have non-Jewish Poles doing all sorts of things in connection with Jewish history in Poland. I'm not Jewish. That's an example. But there's the third avenue. There is a third part of this, which I was thinking yesterday before this talk, and it's pretty much involvement from abroad of both Jews and non-Jews, who are somehow facilitating this revival, or help in this revival, or create the interest, or create the knowledge. Not to go far away from the Galicia Jewish Museum, it's Chris Schwartz who did the photographs for our core exhibition, Englishmen or other Englishmen. Jonathan Weber, who is author of the concept of the exhibition. This is Jason Francisco, who is another American photographer that we work with. And this is for sure Chuck Fishman. My question here is, Chuck, are you feeling a part of this process that is taking place in Poland? Are you feeling being a creator of this, co-creator of this revival, not only as someone who is documenting it?
Not really. I'm just a guy. I'm just, I'm just a photographer working on my project for, historical value. It could be argued I am, I guess I am in a way, but I don't consider myself anything other than being a photographer, photographing a project that I've been interested in for a long time, and with no end in sight, as far as I'm concerned. It's an ongoing project for me. I have no idea when I'll be back in Poland, especially with COVID. I have no idea whatsoever. More than likely, I will be back in Poland and continue to photograph. If my pictures help people re-identify or discover or learn, just learn.
You are just being modest. I will tell you, you are part of this revival. If it was meeting with me, we would have like 4 participants probably, or we have much more. This is the 2 photographs you were mentioning before.
Yes. Yes. Why don't you talk about them, Tomek? Go ahead.
Yeah, I will. Because somehow they signify and they tell a lot about this process. We can call it revival or not. This is our overused word maybe, but Jewish Poland is changing, and this change is a mixture of. This is what this process is a mixture, in my opinion, of change and continuity. The change in this photograph is signified by the building of the Museum of the History of Polish Jews, Polin, occupying most of or part of the same square that you photographed in 1979 and then in 2013.
No, not 2013. Not 2013. This was the 75th anniversary. No. This was 2018.
2018.
This is 2018, the 75th anniversary.
Okay. Anyway,
this was a couple of years ago.
It's many years between those 2 photographs. You did them for purpose. You came there after 40 years. You stand in the same place, and I think that this is where this change in Jewish life and Jewish presence in Poland is visible. It's a subtle change. Only one of the biggest buildings in Warsaw, but it's there. And this change is also about continuity. So basically, dates correct?
Yes.
Dates correct. So this passing of the knowledge, this passing of the tradition in 1979 and 1980 and 1985 and beyond that allows for the same to be happening today. And this is where this Jewish community has its strongest roots in being there, in being and continuing as a Jewish community. And Jewish community in Poland did that against all odds after the war, after the 1968 anti-Zionist campaign, after your visit in 1975, and all the way to today. Let's just for a second jump to the app I was mentioning at the very beginning. These are just some images that we will be. Maybe not one on the left. This is one of the new images from Chuck. These are just examples of the images that we will be showing in this application. And as you see, these are all kinds of photographic representations spanning really 150 years. When I was testing the Zoom yesterday, it didn't work actually because we lost my mic. But yesterday it was working fine. I did this test seminar. I checked everything, and only later I've noticed that I did a typo in the name, and instead of photographs from Jewish Poland, I did photographs from Jewish.
Well, you still have a typo there, Tomek.
Yeah, I just did that now. I'm just showing what I did.
No, photographs. The word photographs.
Yeah. So that's not the case. The case is that I was laughing for a second, but I was also thinking about that. But it's somehow true when we think about pre-war Poland, interwar Poland. We think Wiśniak, we think Kaczyzna, we think Aleksandrowicz. When we think about the Holocaust, there is a set of images which are somehow embedded in our heads. A boy from the Warsaw Ghetto, or the last Jew of a village in Ukraine kneeling over the mass grave. When we think about 1968 and anti-Zionist campaign, we see the photograph in our heads without searching of the crowd of workers holding the banner saying Zionists go back to Israel. When we think about 1970s, we think Fishman. When we think about contemporary Jewish life, we think Fishman and a few other photographers. Chuck, how do you find yourself in this equation? And the question really is, do you somehow relate to other photographers? Do you feel a connection with other photographers doing work about Jewish life in Poland?
Well, yeah. I felt a connection of sorts with Wiśniak because he was the only work. His was the only work I knew of in 1975, and I met with him, after I came back and showed him my portfolio, and he was really nice with me, and we got along great, and the other photographers, I knew almost nothing. I just knew of Wiśniak because at the time, the only book that I knew, and I took it out, was his original book on Polish Jews, which I brought with me to him when we met, and he signed it. But this is what I knew of Jewish Poland, was Wiśniak. The others, it took years, and some for me to some I found later when Dobroschitsky's book, when Dobroschitsky and Barbara Kirschenblatt-Gimmel's book came out, when looking at some of the pictures in here, so I learned more names of photographers, Polish photographers, but some I had no idea whatsoever, and still discovering, like just relatively, Heinrich Ross, Łódź Ghetto pictures. Some of those pictures are absolutely incredible, and there were unknowns for so long, for so long. So, and I would think.
So you definitely have to download our application. because you will find quite a lot of photographers really aiming their lens at Jewish Poland. About Wiśniak, I will show you something. Yeah. You sent that to me before we did the exhibition. It was 2015, I think, when I asked you about Wiśniak for a lecture or a paper or something, and I shouldn't share the private correspondence, but you said to me in the email, I am the direct link. And there is something in this, because you came to Poland roughly 40 years after Wiśniak. 1935, 1938 is when he did his work in Eastern Europe, and then you came back another 40 years. 40 years later, and I think that I hope that your photographs would be as relevant in 40 years from contemporary photographs as your photographs from the 1970s and 80s are a source of our knowledge and our visual thinking about Jewish communities in Poland. I have 2 more photographs which I want to show, and later maybe we will allow people to ask questions, ask questions. Those 2 photographs which I left out for the end are also from the new batch. I just got them from Chuck, as I said, 2 days ago or 3 days ago. I'm not sure if they were published. If so, they were published on Chuck's Facebook, maybe. I don't know. First one. I also showed them just to give you a little more insight into how I understand the change which is happening in Poland. This is photograph taken in front of the Izaka Synagogue in Kraków. This is the infamous lockdown of the Izaka Synagogue. Without going into too much details, there was a conflict between Jewish community on Kraków and the Chabad Lubavitch, who was using this synagogue. This photograph was taken by Chuck Fishman in 2019 when this all happened. But there is something. I see something positive in this photograph, despite all the things that happened or all the discussion that is going on. There is this overtold joke, a much overtold joke about Jew being on a desert island, and basically when they discover him, they find out that there are 2 synagogues, that he built 2 synagogues, and he explains that I'm attending one of the synagogues. The second one, I will never set my foot in there. So I think that we are beyond that in Poland. We are beyond having 1 Jew and 2 synagogues, and the synagogues mostly ruined. I think that this is at last being normal. I'm a sociologist, so I know that the conflict is an element of change and evolvement. So thinking in terms of photography, there is a photograph that was made by Eric Lessing, amazing photographer, European photographer, Austrian photographer, in '56 in Kraków. He just did 5 or 6 images of Krakowian Jews in the synagogue, in the Rema synagogue in 1956. There was a religious event. I don't remember which one it was, but there was no rabbi, so older men were acting as a rabbi. One of the older men was acting as rabbi, and I take this photograph with 2 Jewish communities arguing about the use of synagogue as a progress. Despite all the discussion that is going on, and probably Chuck would have something to say. And the second photograph which I want to show you is this one photograph taken in Warsaw. This was taken on the anniversary of Ghetto Uprising. It's a project by Gabi von Saltman. She basically projected an image of the Great Synagogue of Warsaw on the building that is standing in the place where the synagogue once was. And again, this is when it gets complicated. First feeling, I have two kinds of feelings looking at the photograph. First is, what the heck? Why there is a huge skyscraper on the side of the great synagogue of Warsaw? We know why there is. It was destroyed by Germans after war. It was not rebuilt. The place was used as a construction site for this building. But the second feeling, the second aspect is, wow, they are projecting this huge image of the great synagogue in the middle of Warsaw on one of the largest buildings in Warsaw. This is also very important in terms of how this change is working, and this is how I somehow understand that. I don't know, Chuck, anything about those two photographs?
Well, let's see. Gabby's installation, the projection on the building, was fantastic, and that was on the evening of the 75th anniversary of the commemoration of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. That was part of the unofficial commemoration. The one that you showed on the left outside the Isaac during the lockout, to explain in simple terms, possibly, it's a little bit like us airing dirty laundry. You know, it's there's some things where it's like, you don't say it because it's within the community, because it's like people, it was the infighting stuff. There's, to those who are interested, there's a wonderful article, came out a year ago, in a couple of months, by Rabbi Michael Berenbaum, and he wrote it, you can Google it. He wrote it, it was published in the Jewish Journal, the title of it is Jews Bar Jews from Their Own Synagogue in Poland, by Michael Berenbaum, July 3rd, 2019. And he tells about his week in Krakow and everything that was during the Jewish Cultural Festival and all kinds of things that were going on there. But then, furthermore, he goes into the lockout. And it explains things from one big point of view, but the man who was hiding, who was crying, was a Holocaust survivor in his early 90s who lives in Israel. His name is Dov. Actually, his character, he was portrayed in the movie Exodus. He was the young fighter who had come from war-torn Europe, whose girlfriend was killed, and who then took a shovel and dug it into the ground. His young wife, or wife-to-be, was killed. Was taken on that man. That was him. He was there for the cultural festival and to be back, and he had said something to the effect of the last time there was anything like this was during the Holocaust, when but this is reality. It's the Jewish community. It's a real community. There's infighting. There's politics. There's everything. There's everything. And like you said, hey, in Warsaw, what, there's 4 different synagogues or something? You have, 1 Jew, 2 synagogues. There's all kinds of things going on. It's life. It's life happening, and there's a community, and it's small, but it's growing. It's growing because more people, discover and want some identification, and how much they want or don't want, again, it's strictly up to them. But also the non-Jewish, as you refer to, non-Jewish Poles have, come to acknowledge, more than acknowledge, but some, embrace in some small towns where the building that was once a synagogue is now, was taken over to be used as a cultural center because there were some people who were really interested, who had discovered, 50 years of communism suppressed it all, but they discovered that, oh, gee, before the war in 1939, half of this town or 1/3 of this town or the majority of this town, were Jewish people. and then they're gone. SS Ewald, I understand a little bit of Polish. I certainly don't speak it. So there's an embrace. There's, it's 1,000 years of Jewish history in Poland, and Polish history and Jewish history are entwined. So it's, there is a relearning, again, since the fall of communism, there's been more opportunity for people, and of course with the rise of the internet and people to look at their genealogy, there's more rise for people to learn and discover. That's what I have to say, Tomasz.
Thank you, Chuck. I think that now is the time that we have we should hear the questions.
Wait, can you show everybody? Can you show everyone still left? People who haven't left yet?
That's the problem. I have to do it person by person unless someone will tell me how to do it, because I can do it. I have all the power to do something with panelists, but not with the. So maybe people will raise hand. If someone has a question, just please raise hand. Oh yeah.
Unless someone can tell you how to do it.
Carol Shaw.
Okay.
Hello?
Is she unmuted?
Great. It's not a question. It's just to say, I was an old friend of Chris Schwartz. Chris Schwartz, set up the museum.
Founder of the Galicia Jewish Museum, yes.
Yeah. Who was a great photographer. Yeah. Okay. That's all I wanted to say.
Nice to hear you, Carol. Yeah.
Can anyone tell Tomasz how to make everyone visible? SSE Wald. We don't hear you.
Yeah, you have to press the, oh yes.
Yeah. Hello?
Yes.
Hello.
Hello. All right, you speak very little Polish. How did you communicate with people? Do they speak English a lot, or
now?
Yeah.
Since when I was coming back, 2013, there was more and more English, much more English. But initially, well, as a working photographer, working in many countries, you learn how to communicate non-verbally. So, how to ask questions. You can do it with your hands. You can do it with facial expressions. You do it with body language. Of course, nothing is as good as direct, verbal communication when you want information. But initially, like in '75, a combination of English, Polish phrases, Yiddish, a little French, some Hebrew, writing things down on paper, and then like numbers so that people can see what a number, because how are you else going to say, ask a number? You can't say it in the language, you write it down. So it varied. And then farther along in 78 to 83, there was more opportunity for people to not necessarily understand, but they knew I can get information. It was easy to get information.
All right.
Someone just wrote to click gallery, Tomasz. Someone just wrote to click gallery view. Oh, and by the way, someone wrote the T-shirt is from the Galicia Jewish Museum. It's a Galicia Jewish Museum T-shirt, which can be had from their bookstore. Because I saw that question come up.
Yeah, Mr. Kramer.
Yeah, just a
Hello?
very quick question. Like someone solved my question about how you were managed to communicate with people in Poland, like back in the 70s. But generally, like, you know, that was a very difficult and a hard time over there, like in 70s, 80s, in Poland specifically, you know, like from the history perspective. So when you were like traveling and there was like police, I mean, you know, like people who were really up for government, and they were like,
Or what? Say that again.
I mean,
People.
people who are very up from the government side, like, you know, specifically I'm talking about the police over and over again, or maybe like people from soldiers generally. So because from my perspective, seeing back then, I'm from 90s, so I'm not talking about my history there, but just like, you know, specifically people from other countries are very exotic. So how did you feel about it, and how you managed to travel around Poland without any problems, like checkups on in different cities, like on the road?
It varies. It varied, and you always expect problems. There's always problems, but they're not necessarily problems. They're ways of working things out. As far as exoticism, everything's exotic. Really, the exotic comes from your frame of mind. I think anything could be, you know, something could be very boring to one person and very exotic to another. It completely varies, and traveling around, it depended on the time, the place, if it was an event, whether it was a bus or a train or a private car or a group of people in a car. So that all varied. I see Ruth. Ruth. Can Ruth talk?
Chuck, I have some.
Yeah.
I have some. Oh,
Wait.
oh yeah. Yeah. Hello.
Want me to talk?
Yeah, you just came up.
Yeah. What do you want me to say?
Oh, I thought there was a question because I saw your name come up. I thought people's things were coming up because there were questions.
No, it
No.
was probably me clicking the wrong.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Chuck, there's a question via Q&A. Have
Yeah.
you ever felt guilty about taking a photograph?
Guilty. Maybe. Not in Poland. Not in Poland. No, not necessarily. I mean, there might be some specific point, but basically, my premise, and I know photographers of my generation or the way we would work is, you do anything you need, as long as you don't hurt anyone, to make your photograph. You know, all bets are off. All bets are off. If you're there to photograph, to show something, to make a picture, to anything, as long as you don't literally hurt anyone, that's why you're there. That's the only reason you're there. I mean, you're there perhaps for empathy. I mean, and you do it the way you can do it, the way you see it, the way you feel it, the way you emote it, everything. You just do it, and there's always, once it's on film or on digital or whatever, once it's made, you always have the option of never showing it. And if it's a sensitive situation, let's say like in a funeral, it's like, and you're close with people. It's not as if you just go barging in. You don't do that. You look for an opportunity to make a connection, a possible connection, where you can get the approval, the non-verbal approval of people or of someone, and you go and you do your work. And you know, you photograph, it's a combination, you know, it's not, you know, it's not the eye, it's a combination, and I'm not the first person who said that. It's a combination. It's the heart, it's the brain, and it comes through the eye, and you work it with all the experience you've ever had, both as a photographer and as a human being, and any knowledge that you have that you bring to this image, to the subject, and that helps you determine what you're going to photograph and how you're going to photograph it, and what's included in the frame and what's excluded from the frame. You know, you're photographing with a point of view. There's, you know, objective photography is a bit of a joke. You know, everything is subjective, and you're doing what you want, how you want to do it, and hope that it works on many levels. Hope that it works on many levels.
Another question, Chuck. Are all of your photographs silver gelatin?
My black and white, my black and white prints are silver gelatin, which I print myself in my own personal darkroom. So my black and white work made from film are silver gelatin. You know, color is a different matter. Color can't be silver gelatin, but that's a different story. So my personal work, which I shoot on film, is silver gelatin. Still, that means sometimes the negative gets scanned to make digital so that it can be reproduced digitally, like pictures that Tomasz was showing. You know, those are scans. Most of those are scanned separate from the print, because a print is one thing. So it's like more than twice the work, because once you have a print, that's its own object. Now, if you want to make a scan, not of the print, but of the negative, that's how you get the best image quality as a good scan. You then have to scan it in and work that scan like you're working a print, with spotting, with getting rid of dust, with shading, with what's called burning or dodging, or making something highlighting, you know, so that because you're working that person's eye in the image, and in the final photograph, the way you shoot it, the way you compose it, you're still now shading and making people's eyes work in a certain pattern based on how you would like the photograph to be seen.
Chuck, there is a question which is like that. Will you consider publishing a monograph that covers all your Polish work?
Absolutely.
I'm not sure if this is a proposal from someone or...
Absolutely. As soon as a publisher gives me a call and said we want to, and so we'll say we want to publish it, I would go right ahead and go for it. Otherwise, I'm told the costs are astronomical. I am in no position to self-publish a book of that nature. It costs a lot of money, and if anyone here is a publisher or is a good friend or a brother-in-law is a publisher of good photographic books, then and wish to undertake it, financial undertaking to do it all, I would be happy to work with them, and it would be up until you know, my latest pictures, because like I said before, it's an ongoing project. So there is no end in sight, and if and when a book like that comes out, I would love for it to happen. I'd like to be alive when it happens, and we'll see.
Is there any plan to exhibit in New York City area?
The full show, which was exhibited in Poland, which is over 70 silver gelatin prints. None right now. None right now. A smaller exhibit was done in Riverdale, New York, a few years ago. Much smaller exhibit. But otherwise, there are no plans until I think basically post-COVID. Tomasz,
I will answer this question a bit. It's really difficult to discuss any exhibition at present. From our experience, we had to cancel or postpone or drop plans for some exhibition. It's simply impossible to have proper planning these days in terms of exhibition. But of course, we will be working with this exhibition. We are lucky enough to be renters of the we have this exhibition at Galicia Jewish Museum. If you have a place in New York City or in Boston or in Paris, just let us know. Yeah, the exhibition was traveling. It will be traveling in the future. Hopefully, it will get to New York City in this full format, the 70+ photographs. Hopefully, even it will be even bigger because Chuck made new photographs which can be printed, hand printed by Chuck Fishman for this exhibition. Isn't the Galicianer a sect of Jews from a region? Well,
Galicia, go on, go ahead.
that's what you ask, yeah. Of course it
Galicia.
is. Of course it is. Yeah.
Google Galicia. Just Google Galicia.
People are asking if it will be. We are recording this. Yes, it will be published as a. We will publish a link. We need a day or so, 2 days to make it, look good, and then it will be published on our Facebook, on our
Tell people the Facebook page. Tell people the Facebook page.
Yes, Facebook page. People have to type Galicia Jewish Museum or Chuck Fishman or Żydowskie Muzeum Galicja, depending which language they use. But basically, let me just do this one.
Okay.
This is the Chuck's website. You can find his Polish Jewish portfolio there. I'm sure that there are all the photographs, many photographs that I was not showing from the 1970s and 1980s. You can also find there his photographs from Poland, which are not photographs of Jewish life in Poland, but of the general Polish photographs from under the communism. Galicia Jewish Museum is a website of the museum, which I'm a deputy director and chief curator of. We have another question, I think. I have a question, but my speaker is broken. How did you pick up places to visit before 1989? Did you have a person who guided you where to go? I think this was answered a bit already.
Yeah, that was primarily in '75. We did a Galician route. We hit some of the big cities. Coming in, it was geographical. We came in from Western Poland, Wrocław. Came across to Łódź, Warsaw, went south to Krakow, took buses and whatever through Galicia. That was all over the place. From '78 to '83, that was a different story, and that just varied.
Okay, last chance to. Yeah, someone is suggesting that when visiting Chuck Fishman website, be sure to check his one, black and white images of the celebrities of the last decades. Not sure if this is about the musicians, because Chuck is a wonderful photographer of musicians.
Take care, Jen.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Anyway, yes, musician and popes. Yeah. No problems in Poland. Yeah, Poland is a very nice place. Anyway, we will be slowly finishing. You can send emails probably to us both. You will find them on websites or in the links that I was sending, or in the contact sheet from the Zoom. There's probably some contact information. As I said, we will be launching this photo app soon, probably tomorrow or day after tomorrow. We will be, of course, advertising that on Facebook, on our webpage. Already today, I can invite you to another meeting from this series, from this program. It will take place on the 22nd of September. It will be a lecture by another American photographer, Jason Jason Francisco, who is one of 2 photographers that made photographs for the Galicia Jewish Museum's core exhibition. It will be a lecture about photography and Shoah. Thank you, Chuck. Thank you for spending almost 2 hours talking to me. Thanks for sharing the stories. Thanks for 45 years of photographing Polish Jews. I cannot wait until you will come back, and we'll take some more photographs. Hopefully next festival. This festival was cancelled, by hopefully next festival or next summer.
Yeah, well,
we will see each other in Kraków.
Both Susan and I look forward to coming back.
Yeah, I will try to get him there ASAP. Just yeah. Please do, Susan. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everyone. If you have any, as I said, questions, comments, just send emails to us all.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night in Poland. Good afternoon in USA. Good morning in other places. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Tomasz.